Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Lopez, lawyer for the international firm Baker Tilly, a consulting company that works closely with EAE Business School. Welcome to the Cycle for Entrepreneurship Entrepreneur, a 10-session program that deals with all aspects of entrepreneurship. I take this opportunity to extend a cordial greeting to everyone who is joining for the first time, and especially those who are watching this cycle for different parts of the world. As you know, the Cycle for Entrepreneurs is an initiative promoted by Alumni Association, a new project of the school that offers 5 wide areas of service to students, like training and knowledge, professional development, networking, benefits, and discounts. In this second session, which we have called Turning an Idea into Business, we will focus on team building, methodologies to develop a startup, from idea to business model, and Lean Canvas to visualize the business model. To talk about this topic, we have the presence of Álvaro Cuesta. Welcome. Hi. Álvaro is the co-founder of Sonar Ventures, the first startup producer of Spain. It's a company that is dedicated to advise, accompany, and launch new projects of proven success in the international field. And is also a consultant and speaker in different companies and institutions in topics of digital strategy and entrepreneurship. Also, he was president of the Young Entrepreneurs Association of Madrid and Young Judge Council of CM. Before handing the floor to Álvaro, I invite you to participate in this session and ask your question through Twitter using the hashtag that appeared on your screen. Okay. Again, welcome.
Thank you very much once again, and I know you have to leave very soon, right?
Yes.
So
sorry.
Don't worry. That's what happens at this time of the day. That it's almost lunchtime, and so anyway, good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone, and excuse me, particularly for the delay. We had a traffic problem, and in any case, as you probably recall, this is the second class of the whole cycle of entrepreneurship, how to build a successful startups. And just to make a quick recap, last session it was an introductory section. It was basically I introduced myself and told you a little bit about my background, and then we cover all the main objectives of the whole course. We gave a quick overview of the whole contents of the program, and which basically pretends to help you with tools, methodologies, experiences, or best practices, especially my personal mistakes and any other questions that you might have through Twitter. I remember, I don't recall the hashtag. It's
EAE conference.
EAE conference. You can use EAE conference in Twitter, and I will check if you have any questions along the conference. And basically, the purpose, as I was saying, is how to create successful startups by lowering the chances of failure, or optimizes the chances of success, if you may, and also aligning basically your purpose, your personal motivation, and your skills to the projects and the business that you might want to start, and that's, that alignment. It's part of what I call successful startups, which means, no matter, regardless of the outcome, of the final outcome, that in many cases is not in our hands. We have certain ability to control the outcome, but of course there are many external aspects, and one of them, of course, also is luck. But in any case, no matter what happens, at least if we try it according to our purpose, our principles, our values, our motivations, and we build a team and a culture around them, the result will be at least a very good and intense and fascinating journey, which is what I consider entrepreneurship, and that's why I'm here, and that's why I want to give you a glance of what it is. Now, from last session, we also discuss specific topics of the program, especially those related to the golden circle. I don't know if you recall, that was basically how important the purpose was. And this paradigm, this methodology, if you may, called the golden circle, basically tells you to reflect on your real purpose when you start a company, to start from the why, the reason why you really want to become an entrepreneur, and the reason why you want to change whatever you want to change through the business, as opposed to most businesses that start from the what. And so that golden circle, and we've seen it, and as you can see on the screen, it started from the why, then it was derive the how we're going to do it, and then the what. And that is very important, not just for us and for ourselves, for our team, but also to gather and to attract your clients, your suppliers, your partners, your investors, all types of stakeholders that of course will be more attracted and more inspired if you have a very powerful why. So that was a very important aspect of last session. And then we analyzed, apart from the purpose, we analyzed the importance of the traits and the skill set that we had as entrepreneurs, especially focusing on perseverance, creativity as something that is not essential, how ideas were not essential either, and the main issue was, and the main critical factor was to find good problems to solve with the right purpose. So we analyzed the personal traits that we should have as entrepreneurs, and if not, or if we didn't have those traits, at least where to find, how to find our ideal co-founder, and what are the different archetypes of our co-founders. We've covered the archetypes of the hacker and the hustler, and also the hipster. I don't know if you remember, and how important was to find complementary people in your team, within your team. So why, how, what, team and personal traits. We also cover the different aspects of the entrepreneurial ecosystem and how important it was to consider the different elements of an ecosystem, not just our potential market, but also the ecosystem itself. And then we consider the importance of methodologies. We talk about how important was to take into account not just the purpose, not just the emotions, but also to measure everything and to use as many methodologies that are already standardized to lower the risk to launch our business. And how do we lower our risk? Well, first of all, if we need less resources, I mean, then if we fail, it's not that big of a deal. So we will see in this class and the next ones how to use these methodologies to start with lower resources, and then to make changes quicker and faster and in a more agile way, and once again having the customer as the center of our value proposition and everything we do. So the main methodologies that we're going to see today are Lean Startup and Customer Development. We're going to start by talking about Lean Startup, and then we will focus on customer development and actually today get a deeper focus on it. So in order to start defining Lean Startup, that you can see it on the screen, we should start by defining what is a startup. I mean, what makes it different for us when we talk about a SME, a small medium enterprise, than talking about a startup. What is the difference between just a new company or a startup? Because some people confuse those terms. So there are a few key elements that define or differentiate a startup from the other types of companies. The main one is a temporary organization. I mean, after it's not a startup, it might work like a startup, it might be like a startup, but it's not a startup. It's a temporary organization that is normally very small, therefore very agile, that which main purpose is to find a business model, because the business model is not defined yet, is just a solution. It's a product that is finding a solution to solve a problem for a specific customer, but without a specific business model yet. So the main purpose of a startup is to find a business model. Another trait, another factor of to consider a startup is uncertainty. It's not the same to start a restaurant in the main street of your city. That is, I mean, yeah, you can have uncertainty, but it's not like incredible uncertainty, because you know what to expect somehow. You know the orders of magnitude. You know that you will sell food and charge a price. You might lower or increase the price. You might change the food. You might change the chef. But at the same time, you know somehow what to expect. Now, in a startup, uncertainty is crucial. I mean, it's an essential point of building a startup. So uncertainty. And another element is technology. Why is it important, technology? Well, because of the last factor, and that is scalability. I mean, a startup normally starts at a certain point, but once it finds the business model, what's called the product market fit that we've covered last session in a very general overview. Once the startup finds the product market fit, then it needs to scale very fast and keeping somehow the same structure, not increasing the structure. For example, I mean, WhatsApp, that you all know, is a product that I think it has at least like 1 billion users. Okay, 1 billion users. I mean, 1,000 million users. Now, that billion users, it's being controlled by 23 people, 27 people that were conforming the structure of WhatsApp as a company. That's scalability. Okay, of course, this is the extreme view of scalability, but you see that the first users, they probably had a structure of 5 people, 2 people, 3 people, and then the ratio of new customers or new users using your product or service is, I mean, the ratio is just incredible. I mean, you can scale and have thousands, even millions of clients or users and still keep a small structure. That's a scalability. And that's why technology is a big role of that identity of a startup, because without technology you cannot scale in such way. Okay, so those are the main elements of a startup. Temporary, uncertainty, looking for a business model, being scalable thanks to technology. Okay, so that's startup. Now, in order to build a good business, there's one guy called Eric Ries who thought, okay, what happens if I apply certain methodologies that were being used before, that was called lean manufacturing, to the art of building a company? And that means applying one of the methodologies that were used before as well was the scientific method. Well, you probably all know what the scientific method is, but just to remind you, the main elements of the scientific method were to frame or to state a hypothesis, then to run an experiment. Once you run the experiment, you analyze the data that is the result of the experiment, and you confront whether that data validates the hypothesis that you had or refutes it. Okay? Now, what happens if it doesn't validate? Well, then you reframe the hypothesis and then run the experiment, and once again, so it's a continuous loop. Okay? Well, this is what he applied to the art or the world of startup building. This is especially applicable to startups, but it can be applicable to any type of company. It's just that in startup world, it's easier because things are easier to measure. Okay, so when you run an experiment, you can see the results in a better way, and you can actually make changes in a better way than, it's not the same when you want to change the decoration of your restaurant that when you want to change the colors of your website, or to put a button of your website on your website to the left or to the right. Okay, we all agree on that. So this is Lean Startup. You can see the definition here. The Lean Startup methodology is a learning strategy to build a sustainable business. And this learning can be validated scientifically. Once again, scientific method. By running experiments that allow the entrepreneur to test the viability of their vision. So this is a good definition that I like about Lean Startup. This is not from Eric Ries, but it's a good, also a good definition. The reason also why it makes a lot of sense to use this methodology is basically for one main reason, and that is that most startups fail, and many of those failures are preventable. So I started last session saying, hey, you got 90% chance of failing, and that's somehow true. But at the same time, if you apply these methodologies, the chances of that failure will be much lower, and that failure will be much worse. I was referring last time to to the fact that it's not the same falling from a 5th floor than falling from the 1st floor, right? I mean, you die, or you might just have to go to the hospital and then recover, right? Well, that can happen to an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur can just die because, when you run a new company, then you have to, you get a huge financing, you sign, you make warrants with all your salaries, your goods, your assets and everything. Well, if you fail, then you fail big. What we're trying to do is to fail small, okay? And of course, not to fail. So this guy, Eric Ries, he said, entrepreneurship is fundamentally a process that can be learned and therefore can be taught. So I recommend you, apart from this conference or this class, this session, this book from Eric Ries that you can see. The name of the book is The Lean Startup, and I think it covers basically the main aspects of the methodology. It's very easy to read, very simple to understand, and I think it's essential to any entrepreneur, for any entrepreneur that wants to build a company. Okay, so apart from what I will tell you here, that I will synthesize it. If you want to get deeper into it, read that book, Eric Ries. Now there's another person. He also focused more than instead of Lean Startup, he focused on customer development. That his name is Steve Blank, and he's also a very famous investor and serial entrepreneur. And he states that 1 out of 10 new product introduction results in a profitable business. That's not a lot, right? So these are the main conditions or preconditions to design this new methodology. And also, just to consider this paradigm, you have to consider that the difference between the traditional companies or traditional startups and why they were most losers, and why Lean Startup methodology are all winners. You can see here, 90% of the losers are the people that launch a product and fail are like normal people, like you, like me, I'm not saying that you're normal, I don't know you, but statistically speaking, you're normal, okay? In terms of you're not an incredible super genius like Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg. If you are, congratulations, or send me an email and I will love to partner with you. But what this graphic is saying here is basically that the traditional way by which startups were built before was only good for very gifted and talented people, for lucky people, for like incredible visionaries that were acting without really measuring everything, and only 10% of the people get to succeed. Now with Lean Startups, then anyone can actually start a business and just based on science and facts can reach success in their company, or just learn the fact that the company was not meant to be launched, at least at that time, because timing sometimes is also a very important factor. So what are the main topics of Lean Startup methodology? Well, the main topics are the ones that you see here. First, customer development, we will see that today. Uncertainty, we've seen that already. uncertainty is you need to be aware that it's on a daily basis. You are moving in a very uncertain environment, okay? And that's, once again, this is one of the key elements, differentiators that are part of a startup. And that uncertainty makes us, it creates the need within us to face that uncertainty. How do we do it? Well, with numbers, with metrics, with indicators. So with all that fuzzy information that it's changing every day, one day cars are driven by gasoline and manually driven, and like 2 days ago, Elon Musk just launched a 30,000 euro electric vehicle that can run autonomously for more than 400 kilometers. So I'm not saying it's the first electric car, of course. I'm just saying that it's the first really affordable electric car with enough autonomy and that is also self-driven. What I'm saying is that that has a huge impact on the transportation sector. So as just an example of how things change from one day to another, from 1 week to another. One day you have a certain hotel sector, and within 3 years the biggest and largest hotel corporation in the world with no assets at all is Airbnb, and and the whole gig economy transforms the whole ecosystem of the leisure and tourism, and is even changing the landscape of the cities. And I'm just giving you those main examples to tell you that if you combine this collaborative economy with the new technologies that are emerging, like self-driven cars, like machine learning applied to anything, like artificial intelligence, big data, Internet of Things, genetics, nanotechnology, all those things are creating what it's called two things. First, the technological vortex, which means that all those technologies combined are producing new results, new outcomes, new breakthroughs every single day, okay? And that also combined with another key element that is called the exponential society, which means that before you could predict almost anything, at least make a fair or reasonable hypothesis about the future just by analyzing the past. You could analyze the past and you can predict certain trends. Now with the exponential world, everything new occurs in an exponential way. I mean, it happens almost within 1-2 months, 1-2 weeks, 1-2 years, nothing compared to how it was before. That creates, and that's why I'm telling you in this conference, in this class, that creates a huge uncertainty about the future, which enables us to really develop a business plan that predicts how much I will sell in 3 years, because I don't even know the technologies that will be there in the next 3 years. So uncertainty is there, and the only way to actually navigate through that uncertainty is by applying, I think, lean startup principles, and that means changing every week or every 2 weeks your hypothesis, validating your hypothesis constantly, analyzing the results by what the market is telling you, and then adapt quickly to those changes. And that is the best way to move through uncertainty. And that's why startups are built, and that's why lean startup methodology is built for. Now, another concept that it's very important, and we will see that in depth, is the MVP, the minimum viable product. That is the first product that will test our hypothesis, the first product that we will use to make sure that what we think solves the problem that we want to solve is, our solution is at least a valid solution or a potentially valid solution. Just for that, we'll get deeper into that after. And then we will see the build, measure, learn loop. We will see that now. which is basically what I was telling you before. I mean, just applying the scientific method as much as we can and learn from it. Okay, it's a continuous system that we apply every single day in our company. So this is the loop. This is the methodology that talks about lean startup. And as you can see there in the slide, you see there three circles, that is build, measure, learn. In the build stage is basically your experiment. I mean, you had an idea, that's a hypothesis that you see there. You run the experiment, and for that you need to actually build something. And then you learn, basically you get data. You learn from the data that you actually somehow planted in order to get and to receive those, I mean, that information. So the way it works is basically, imagine we want to test a new hypothesis, imagine we want to solve a problem regarding for example, one company that I'm considering and creating is about recycling. Okay, I am my why, as you know, as I was telling you, the why, how, what. My why is I want to find problems that are massive, that affect to millions of people, that are not correctly solved, and that through technology and thanks to startups can be solved in an efficient way, okay, and a scalable way. That's my why. And one of the motivations that I have is the fact that we have a lot of waste, and we are producing more and more waste on an exponential basis. We're basically destroying our planet. So just by, and there's a, so that's my purpose, okay? Then I find a problem. That's why ideas are not important. I just need to find a problem according to that purpose. The problem I just found, it's obvious. We have a problem with recycling. Each company, each company as well, but each country, each household, each one of us is recycling or is seeing the recycling process as a different, in a different way. Some countries have certain legislation, some companies are recycling or not, some citizens are recycling or not, but we all hate doing it. I mean, some of us have got used to it, it becomes a habit, but in a way we find very inconvenient to be in our kitchen and to get, you know, a lot of things, and for each and every single thing we have to separate the plastic, the glass, the organic, the paper, the batteries, the electrical circuits. I mean, each and every single material we need to do a lot of separation, and that takes a lot of cognitive effort. You might think it's stupid. I mean, it's something simple, you just have to do it and get used to it, but actually we make so many decisions every single day, we make more and more and more, that, you know, the less decisions we have to make, the better, okay? But in any case, the fact is that we don't even recycle. I mean, it's not in our habits. So basically, someone needs to solve that. That is a big problem. Now, my hypothesis, first hypothesis, as we will see applying customer development, is, okay, I think there is this problem. Most entrepreneurs might be already sure that the problem exists. But what the customer development and lean startup methodology is telling you is like, okay, no, forget about it. You might think there's a problem, but stop thinking that you are the market and that you are in possession of the universal truth. You have to be humble. I mean, these methodologies are in a way about humility at the same time. It's about not considering yourself as the huge visionary that knows that there's a problem that no one has detected. No. First, you need to make sure that that problem exists, and to really understand that problem and the people that have that problem. So first thing, instead of focusing on the idea, I would start focusing on the problem, and I would start by doing what it's called the customer discovery, which means, and the customer validation, which means that I need to make sure that the problem that I think that I've seen it's really a problem. So I will go and talk to many people. I will apply, and we will see that after. I will apply the principle called get out of the building. That's the name of the principle, which basically states that I need to get out of the building. I need to get out of the office and stop writing and looking for competitors, or looking for websites, looking for reports, or customer studies, or market studies. Or just forget about that and get out of your office, talk to people and say, hey, how do you see recycling? Is it a big problem? How do you recycle? Why do you do it? Do your friends recycle? What is the main problem that you find associated with, the habit of recycling? How is it working in your country? How is it working in your neighborhood? Would you, for example, would you recycle if it was something mandatory, and would you recycle if it's not? Well, once you do that, and you understand the whole environment of the people when they face that problem. For example, it's like, how do you manage to separate things? What are the tricks that you do? How do you know which thing goes to which container? How do you get out those containers to the street, and how do you actually manage that? Do you do that on a daily basis, on a weekly basis? Are the containers next to your door, to your building, to your house, or you need to walk? Are those all together, or you need to do different trips to different types of waste? Well, as you can see, one thing is saying, oh, I think recycling is a problem. But once I talk to like 30, 40 people about it, and not just by sending surveys, by just having interviews and doing those interviews and just having a fluid conversation about it, just by doing that, we can understand and really validate whether that problem exists or not, and the real dimension of it. So let's say that we validated that we have that problem. In order to, our experiment using this methodology of lean startup would be, okay, I think I have this hypothesis. My experiment in this case will be conducting 12, 15 interviews. I will measure the results, which will be just analyzing the qualitative data that I've got, which means my notes on the interviews. And based on those notes, I will reframe my hypothesis, because maybe the problem is not recycling in terms of separating my waste. Maybe my problem is actually throwing the waste to different, garbage cans. Or maybe it's quite the contrary. I don't care about, getting out on the street and just throwing the garbage to the right container, but it's a pain for me to really on a daily basis separate that. Or maybe it's a problem of storage, that you cannot have enough cans to different types of waste. I don't know. I would need to talk to each one of you, at least a good spectrum of it, and based on those interviews and that result, reframe my hypothesis. And once I reframe my hypothesis, maybe I will run another interview to really understand if it's the problem about throwing the waste or managing the waste. So let's say that we've validated the problem, okay? That's the first stage. The second stage is to propose a solution. But this is the first solution. I haven't seen in my career a first solution that has ever worked forever and ever. That has remained as the solution throughout the whole life of the company. That's not the way it usually works. The way it works is, okay, I find this solution because I think that's the way I would solve the problem that I understood from the market after interviewing and talking and understanding and researching. And then I frame my hypothesis and I say, okay, I have different solutions. One solution would be to gamify, to create a game about recycling, which will incentivize people to use recycling methodologies or habits, and make it fun and maybe reward with points that will be able to redeem and have discounts to other things. Okay, that's one hypothesis. Let's say that is my first hypothesis. Well, then, in order to run that experiment, to validate my hypothesis, I will need to say, okay, so I will create a website that will say, wastegame.com, random name I just came out with. And I will create a landing page projecting that I already exist as a company, and I explain, stop wasting your time, for example, with double meaning of waste and wasting time. Stop wasting your time, and then if you want to go from a boring process of recycling to a fun and rewarding game on a daily basis for you and your family, this is the wasting game. And just we will explain the main features or benefits of that hypothesis, of that solution that we have, and also a final call to action by asking, okay, so just click here and leave us your email if you want to get more information, or if you want to get a discount, or if you want to us to send you a download link to download the app, or whatever solution we came out with. Let's say that our solution is an app to gamify recycling in our house. Well, part of the experiment would be run a Facebook campaign. That is very easy. We will see that in a few classes, but you could do it for free for your first 50 euros or 70 euros, and that's something simple. You can run with 50 euros on Facebook without spending money, actually for free. You can run a campaign saying, okay, I will target that to let's say men and women that have kids, so they have a family, that live in major cities and that usually have less time, so they find that more of an inconvenient task, and just that, let's say that, and maybe that are environmentally aware. You can actually segment those things, those traits, those rules using Facebook. I will show you how in the future. So depending on how many people clicked on your advertisement, how many people actually subscribe to that, you will say, okay, maybe my hypothesis that gamifying recycling, maybe my hypothesis was right, maybe it was wrong. So we will learn that by analyzing the data. Let's say it didn't work, and I presume it would not work because it's been done in the future. My next hypothesis will be, okay, I think that if people pay, I think that people will be willing to pay in order to get that process done for them. Actually, it's my hypothesis. And you say, I mean, why? I mean, if no one is forcing me to do it, why would I pay for something that I'm not? Well, maybe some of you not, but there are a lot of environmentally conscious people that they are very aware of how important it is to recycle, so they will do it no matter what, but they are willing to pay a very small amount to get rid of that hassle. And by that I mean that maybe to put everything in one container, just one universal container in their own house, and have that picked up by people that will do the separation of that waste for you. That, so even before running the experiment for quantitative information, which means that how many clicks, how many people subscribe, how many people are willing to pay, and that we would start applying what the customer discovery and customer validation techniques, and we will say, okay, let's go out of the building and say, even to some people that we actually asked about the recycling problem, but any kind of people that we might think that might fit on the description of that problem that might suffer that problem, and especially environmentally conscious people. Maybe you go to a place where you will see that there will be young people, environmentally conscious, maybe in a concentration for environmental cause or whatever, and you will just have a quick interview, just invite them for a coffee and say, okay, I have a few questions. Would you pay to get rid of that hassle of recycling? And if most of your answers are positive, you say, okay, of course, how much would you pay? Would you pay $5 per week, €5 per week? Would you pay €10 per week? Would you pay nothing? Would you like to actually get paid in order to recycle? If you considering all those interviews and those results, let's say that you actually confirm that people might be interested in that solution. Well, then that's when you build the MVP, the minimum viable product, and then you say, okay, I will create a website that is called, I will build another name that is free. I mean, you can build those names and those logos for free. We will see that in the next class, how to build those products without spending, not even €100, and you will get a free logo, free brand, almost, a domain name, and a marketing campaign, and even a video explaining everything. Just everything for less than $100. So you would build that MVP, that minimum viable product, and by doing so, you will build a website called waste pay, or waste, let's say this is the Uber for waste, right? So imagine that's like Uber waste. It's a stupid name, okay? It's just to get that idea. So you build uberwaste.com, the Uber for garbage, and basically you project there that is like, you talk about the problem, you talk about the solution, you talk about the main benefits, that you will save the environment, you will save the planet, you will get even discounts because that company can even analyze what you throw away. It's funny, but we will talk about the business model behind this idea later, but one of the potential business models or the potential revenue streams is not just the subscription money that you get from the customer, but the actual big data that you get from that customer, because we know more about a customer from what he or she throws away than actually from what she buys. So that information might be very valuable for certain companies, and they are willing to pay for that info. So we don't know where the money is yet. We just are focusing on making sure that there is a problem, making sure that our solution is the right one. We've tried a gamification one, but it didn't work. Imagine, this is a simulation, of course, and the fact that the ideas are not important is this, and I'm sharing this idea with all of you at this point, and I don't care if you just go try and solve it. So that's why I'm against people that are afraid to share the ideas or whatever. Ideas are free. So we make sure there is a problem, we make sure that there is a solution, we go and interview people, we reframe the hypothesis, we go for another solution, we make sure that solution is good enough to start building a product to validate quantitatively, and then once we have that product, we make sure that some people actually go and click on download the app, even if it's not there. We will discuss later in the next class the example of Dropbox. Dropbox built what's called a ghost product. They launched their product to make sure that they were really solving the problem they wanted to solve, but there was no product. Instead, there was a landing page, as the one I described before, and that landing page was projecting as that product was already existing. They even made a video and making it look like you could download Dropbox, and when people clicked on download, the answer was I'm sorry, we're not ready yet, but you can leave your email here and we will send you a link with a discount, and we will let you know. You will be part of the waiting list, our waiting list. So you will be one of the first people to know when we're ready, and you will get a free discount of 3 months for free or whatever. That it was the best experiment to validate the hypothesis that they had. Imagine how valuable that information was, and without any money. They didn't spend more than 200 euros on the website, the video. They just sent a press release. The press release got thousands of visits because that was really solving the problem on an abstract point of view. And then when people click there, a lot of them, they just gave their emails because they wanted to be the first to know and to get access to it. So they went with that information to an investor and said, hey, we found this problem. We thought the solution was this one. We built an MVP for that solution. The MVP gave us these results, and with these results, we believe that we can build a product, but we need your money for it. You see, there's a big difference between all those things that I just told you and the other way around, that is, I have this idea because I know the solution, because I'm very smart, and I will not tell anyone about it because they will copy my idea. I will find people like me instead of being complimentary. That's what most people do. I will ask some other people to build a product for me, and since I have no tech skills, I will find my cousin, my friend, that will actually be a partner and charge me some money, but I'll also be my partner. So I will be, completely limited the rest of my life as a business person with this partner that I'm not sure how, whether it's the right technology, the right person or not. I just need to save money, and I will make a business plan for months, analyzing the market, a market that I don't know, that is going to change so quickly, that maybe Dropbox will be there, maybe another competitors, maybe Amazon, maybe, and I will look for investment. And once I get the money, I will build the product. It will take me 6 months. I will launch the product, and I haven't even listened to the market yet. And that's 1 whole year, and I spent it all. Instead of that, you don't even need to build a company to do what I just told you. Apply those principles. You see the difference? That's the difference from falling from a 5th floor and falling from a 1st floor. Okay? So I'm going to check in Twitter if you have some messages on Twitter. I remind you that the hashtag is EAE conference. Let me just check EAE conference to see if there's any questions so far. If not, please do it if you're already watching, because so far there is no questions. Okay, so let me just I need to recover my screen. 2017. There you go. So that's Lean Startup. That's the Lean Startup loop, and the customer development methodology that we've been trying to cover. We are going to review it. You will see here a very detailed process on how to actually design a customer development framework. Okay, imagine this idea of recycling. Well, first, as the name states, customer development, first thing you need to do is know your customer. You want to solve a problem, but who do you want to solve it for? Okay, you want to solve it for families, for DINK, double income no kids. You want to solve it for students that are millennials, that sometimes they're very environmentally conscious because everyone's talking about saving the world and changing the world and everything, but they're lazy, or they just they're not lazy, but they're just used to be practical. They're maybe older people are used to cook, walk to places, and wash their own laundry. And now millennials are used to use an app that will take the laundry and get it clean, to order an Uber and have it, in 5 minutes, to, get deliver your food within 15-20 minutes, and, healthy food. I mean, it's all the area of convenience. So maybe that inconvenience of recycling is especially painful to millennials. So first you need to know is to define and sketch your persona. Your persona is also known as your customer segment, the type and a specific type of person that you want to solve the problem for. And of course you might think, yeah, but what I do is I find, I want people from 20 to 45 years old that live in cities with medium high income. That's not a customer segment. That's way too broad. We need to actually find the customer segment in a very detail. We need to actually be very specific, because we have low resources, so we cannot just throw our nets on the sea and expect people just to bite the hook. Okay, we need to really focus on the type of people we want to solve the problem for, and maybe make different hypotheses and different experiments and say, okay, I will test my hypothesis with millennials, with older people, with young people, but not millennials, like professionals like me, that I'm not an old person, hope, and not a millennial. And once you find your persona, you create what we call a description of that persona. We will see that later. Once you find that, you say, okay, I need to find 5 people, 10 people like the persona I just had in my mind. Imagine that I define a persona that it's called, Amy, okay? Just to find a name, random name. And I say Amy is a 27-year-old person that is living by herself, sharing an apartment with her 2 friends. They belong to 2 civic or NGOs, because they really believe in changing the environment. They're not activists because they have no time, because they work for a multinational. They make more than 50,000 euros per year because they work for a big company, and they're executives, so they have to work so many hours. They spend very few time at home. They pay to a startup to make their laundry. They actually pay to another startup to send them meal kits or food kits of every week, so they don't have to cook or waste too much time cooking. And at the same time they travel a lot, and they pay also another startup to clean their house, okay, on a weekly basis, which means that they value their money, their time. I mean, they have money and they value their time and their convenience. She uses Instagram. She loves to use Instagram, and when she travels, she likes to use Airbnb because she wants to see authentic experiences, and she likes to share them, with her Instagram. That would be like the typical description. Imagine that we are script writers of a movie, and you will see an example now. And we want to find 5 people like Amy. So how do we find those 5 people? Well, maybe we go to one of these bars where you find these after works, or these drinks that you get once you leave on a Thursday night from one of the big 4 consultancy companies. You go to Accenture, you go to the bars around Accenture at 9 p.m. and you will find people like Amy. Okay, they just they got out of the office and they just want they just need a drink with their friends. So, or you go to a vegetarian restaurant. That is an expensive vegetarian restaurant. You will find people there that are environmentally, there's a correlation between being vegetarian and being environmentally conscious. I mean, come on. You will find there people that have that description, that fit that description. and you will try to get to talk to them. And you need to be brave and, you know, just approach them. Maybe, you know, not when they're having dinner, but like say, hey, you know, would you mind, you know, we're doing this, we're trying to find a way to solve waste, the waste problem or the recycling problem for people like you guys. I know you guys are busy. I don't want to bother you, but I would like to, if you could take, if I could take 30 minutes of your time, not now, just give me your email or your phone numbers, and we can schedule a meeting, and I will invite you for a coffee. Okay, so things like that. So you find those people and you find the way to find them and to make an interview to them. So then you define and sketch the problem as you want to be solved and interview those people about that problem. You make sure there is a problem. You validate the problem as we've discussed before. Maybe the problem is the waste separation, maybe it's the waste throwing out, maybe it's the whole thing, maybe the problem is the information about how to where goes what. As you know, I have that problem, I have to admit. You know, normally I assign companies that fit with problems that I have, okay? Which does not mean that I define the solutions just based on my own information, but then I find people that are like me and have the same problem. It's a better way to connect with the customer when you are the customer. So then you sketch the solution, and then you start validate your assumptions, and then once you make sure that the problem is there, the solution is there, then you validate. You find other 5 people that fit that assumption, and make sure that the solution is the one you think. Okay. Well, this is an empathy map that is not. I don't want to really get into it, but we need to understand the context of the user. But this is a very good example. In this case, it's in Spanish because it's a real example of Selena. This is something I built for a startup that wanted to solve the babysitting problem. As parents, sometimes we have no time. We're new to a city, new to a country. We have kids. We want to go out. We are in a hotel in a different city. We're just traveling around. We need some time for ourselves, and we need a babysitter. And we have no one to recommend us a babysitter, as we would have on a normal basis on our small city or in our, you know, neighborhood. That we know people, friends, neighbors. But when we travel, and people travel more and more, and we are relocated, when we are expats, we have that problem. So we built a company to solve that problem. And in order to do that, we designed this persona. We found a real name that was called Selena, that we found a fictitious picture, and we built a story around that persona. You know, Selena used to live in Amsterdam with her husband Peter and the 2 kids, Juliet and Rocio, from 3 and 6 years old, respectively. And then when Peter was hired and promoted in his company, they told him that the new position would require to move to Paris, where, you know, the headquarters were located. Selena and the 2 kids had no other option that just to go with Peter and find a new beginning and start a new life from zero. So once there, Selena and Peter had difficulties to make plans together and make sure they had, you know, good time, quality time as a couple. They don't know anyone to trust, to leave their kids with. So reference from known people are an alternative. So then you start defining different traits of that person, the consumption habits, many aspects of that. And then we found 5 people like Selena, and we found that expat people that, for example, were going to lycée français, like, you know, the French school. Most of them were expats, you know, French citizens that were actually, you know, living here temporarily or for long term, and, you know, they needed support and nannies that they could trust. So we defined and designed the whole service and product according to those personas. Okay, now today, just to finish, we will see that if we apply lean startup and customer development, we will see that we've started from the why, how, what. We understood the emotional aspects. We understood how important the customer is and how important to find the problem, validate the problem, then find a solution, validate the solution by using lean startup, which means making different assumptions and experiments and measuring the results and making and reframing those experiments. But that will help us to understand the problem and the solution, thanks to an MVP, a minimum viable product, and move from there. So let's assume that we found a good solution for the problem. Now, there's a big difference, and this is very important. There's a big difference between finding a good solution for a real problem and finding a good business model for a real problem. And as we've discussed before, startups are in continuous search of a business model. Let me give you an example. One of my companies, the best example was the one I was telling you about, the recycling process. Imagine we found that the solution is that people are willing to have an app, like an Uber app, where you have a minimum subscription of let's say $4 per week, and you get one person every Tuesday night that calls your house and gets a container, and you just give the container, and that's it. And if you want a bigger object that needs specific recycling, or old furniture or old books, old clothes, something like that, you got specific boxes that they give you, so you actually put them there and they also pick them up and they charge you 3-5 euros. Well, that would be a business model, not just a solution, but also a business model. The money comes from subscription and an upselling of different items that need to be recycled. What if the business model was the contrary? What if you would get paid by doing the recycling, and in return you are giving the information about your profile as a customer based on the big data that is extracted from your own personal waste and aggregated. Not just, they will not know about your specific habits, but they will anonymize that information, and they will put you in what's called clusters of information, and they will send you, and you agree to receive specific offers according to your target. And the money is not made by paying people to get your waste, but actually buying things that you are interested, and they know that you are interested because you are giving them the info, because they are getting your waste and separating. Maybe it takes, let's say maybe 5 minutes of a person to get a box that you throw away, and just separate things quickly, especially if you automatize big part of the process, and that is associated to you as a customer or your family, and that will give you certain information that will be enriched as you throw more stuff. And also, part of the things you throw, they get them from you, but they also sell them in secondary markets, like Wallapop here in Spain, or Craigslist, or whatever. So as you see, one thing is the problem, is the same. The solution, it's an app. You get a container, they get it once a week. Now, the business model makes a huge difference. And the business model also changes if you go to independent households or families, or if that would be like a B2C, business to consumer business model, or you prefer to go to a B2B, which is a business to business. Now, imagine that this problem is not just for individual people, but it's also for companies. They are, very environmentally conscious because they want to be conscious, because, if you're not, your reputation as a company is, terrible, and they have certain budget to, to take care of those things, and they just pay a company to take care of the whole recycling thing. Imagine the difference between getting one client that is paying you €4 per week than just closing one deal with a 5,000 employee company, and you will charge, let's say, €2 per employee per week. Okay, so the more employees they have, the better for you, because you will send your people once a week, you will get all the waste, they will send it to a plant, they will separate it, they will destroy any paper, any information that should be confidential, and the rest they will recycle, and they will give the brand or the company enough tools to actually communicate the fact that they are recycling, and they can use part of that money to specific projects they can choose about, and they can plant trees with the money they're paying to this startup. So as you can see, there are different ways to solve that problem, not just by the product itself, but who pays what. If it's the company, if it's the individual, if it's actually not you paying, but it's also the advertiser that is paying me to be able to send you newsletters according to your preferences. So there are a lot of things, and in order to help us how to find the right business model, this you've probably seen in your master one tool called the business model canvas. Business model canvas is a new way. Well, it's been around a few years now, to visualize the business model. But there's this guy called Mayura. He wrote a book also about lean startup called Running Lean, and he made a different concept of the business model canvas, and he called it the lean canvas. And as you can see, the main difference is that he focused on, you see how it's done. First you start from the 1, and then you go to 2, then 3, 4, 5, up to 9. So you start filling the different aspects of this canvas, and it will help you visualize and understand all the aspects of your business model. And then if you apply lean startup, you start running different experiments to validate your assumptions. For example, the problem, we've seen that. We can put there 2 or 3 post-its about the problems that we think that we're solving. It could be the problem for companies or the problem for professionals. The second is the customer segment. We might want to focus on SMEs, we want to focus on corporations, or we want to focus on professionals, or we want to focus on students or millennials or whatever customer segment. Here is especially important to focus on what you see there in the number 2, called early adopters. Okay, early adopters are essential. We will see that also in the next class. Basically are your ideal customers where you start selling, because it's like when you launch a smartphone, for example, for the first time in the market, you cannot just offer that smartphone to everyone. My grandmother wouldn't have bought that smartphone at the very beginning. There's this thing called the curve of technology adoption, and you need to choose the first people that will be willing to pay for your service. That's called the early adopter. Then you start thinking about your unique value proposition, which you will say, okay, it's an app that will take care, an app and a container that will take care of all your waste and will separate it for you, and with that information send you a specific promotions according to your preferences of consumption. Then you that's part of the the message that it's your unique value proposition, and then you focus on the solution, and then the channels that you will use, and then, very important, the revenue streams and the cost structure. This is very important, as we've stated, because then we can run experiments and say, hey, let's change a weekly fee, and let's make a hypothesis, and let's change the business model and make it a free service with maybe a subscription fee of 30 euros that you pay for the container, and that will help you to validate the business. And the revenue stream will be by using these newsletters, and maybe not even by the advertiser, but maybe Amazon will pay you 50% of commission for every sale that is done through those newsletters. So you can just sell Amazon products that are specifically targeted to your segment that you've defined because of their products. And just by that customer revenue, I mean, by this percentage that you are getting from Amazon, you make them a very profitable business. Well, you can test, and you can make different hypotheses and different experiments, okay? And the other is the cost structure. You need to analyze very easily what will be your main costs. In this case, operations, logistics, and business development if you go to companies, online marketing if you go to a business to customer model, and of course the technology. Okay, so and then the key metrics that are important. It's not the same for you if you're selling a subscription business model. That one of your key metrics, of course, is your CPA, your customer per acquisition, but other key metric is your recurrency. If you're a subscription service, I mean, it's very important how many months sticks with you a customer, because that will help you understand if it's a profitable business or not. And your unfair advantage, your secret sauce. Those are the main things. So if you consider all that, you will see that you can understand your business model very easily. Here in this slide, you can see as a recap also how important it is to build an MVP in order to start testing that business model, that problem, that solution, and then run experiments and see everything that we've covered here. Okay, so we will see that. We'll see it now. That what happens if you make a hypothesis, you then say, okay, yeah, I understood that people are not willing to pay to get waste. So maybe you can make, let's say that the information that you're getting is that people are not just clicking on that. Okay, they're just not buying. So what you do is you find a new hypothesis. That could be named two different ways. Okay, that could be considered two different things. Either you make a small change. Let's say that instead of going to small, medium companies, you go to big corporations. Or instead of going to students, you go to young professionals. Okay, those are different hypotheses and different experiments that you call iterations. They're slight changes in your business model. Okay, or for example, charging a subscription service, or instead of charging, once every time you want the person to deliver, to get your waste, you pay, pay per use. That would be a different business model, but not very critical. Okay, you're still paying. It's a transactional model. That's still an iteration. But imagine that you say, okay, no, I just completely change, and instead of going to consumers, I'm going to big corporations or big companies. Well, that's a major shift. Okay, that's called a pivot. That's a major change in your business model. That's when you start from small individuals to big corporations. It's a huge type of business, different type of business. That's pivoting. And sometimes after doing a lot of iterations, you need to be aware, because the information tells you that, and your experiments tells you that you need to make a major shift. And that's called a pivot. That's why it says here shift happens. Okay, so I think we're done. I hope you got a glance of what what the main aspects of customer discovery, customer development, and lean startup are, and that you got an idea of how important it is to measure everything, to apply, to become scientists, and to really understand that we need to do constantly in order to move with this uncertainty, to do this build, measure, learn, to throw experiments all the time and measure the results and reframe and make iterations or big pivots, and how important it is to differentiate a good idea from a good problem, that validated a good solution, good product, and a good business model. Okay, there's a big difference. So that's it. I hope you liked it, and we'll continue next session. Also getting deeper into customer discovery, customer development, and I will try to help you and give you resources on how to build cheap minimum viable products, cheap products, and how to develop your startup without spending almost anything. Okay, I will give you those resources and help you out. Okay, so I'll see you next time, and thanks for listening.